Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to look at a data set of Major League Baseball players from 1900 up until 2022. As you can see on the screen, we have each player's name, birthday, the number of years they played, and the year span from the beginning to the end of their professional baseball career. And then we have a bunch of baseball-related statistics. For over 100 years of baseball history, this is a very large table. If I scroll down, as you can see, it goes all the way to more than 15,000 players. So one thing that you may have noticed is when you scroll through the table, now when I scroll vertically, I lose the first row of variable names. So when I scroll down, I can no longer see what this column is. So it's fairly inconvenient. And similarly, if I scroll right, I will lose the player name. So I wouldn't know which player does this row belong to. So the point being that we want to freeze the panel on the top and on the side so that when we browse through the table, we actually still know what each column is and who is on each row. So thankfully, Excel provides a function for us to do that. So we go to, as you can see, under View, there is a choice to freeze panels. And Excel offers three ways to freeze panels. You can freeze the rows and the column, both, and only the top row or only the first column. So in this case, what we want is to freeze the top row and the first column. So the first step to take is make sure your mouse cursor is in the corner where you want what's to the left of your focal cell and to the top of your focal cell to be frozen. So we click Freeze Panels. Now, once I choose that, now if I start to scroll, you see the first row actually stays there. I always know what are the variables in each column. And similarly, if I scroll right, the players' names would stay. So that's a very useful function in Excel, especially when you see larger tables. So what are we going to do for this data? So I'm going to examine two different things related to professional baseball. The first thing I'm going to explore is what's called a birth month effect. So the effect goes like this. If Major League Baseball players become pros somewhat randomly, unrelated to their birth month, then we should observe relatively flat distribution of players' birth months. However, if there are certain birth months where there are more players make it to the Major League Baseball, we should see a larger number of players who were born during those months. And similar goes to the months where we may observe a fewer than average number of players who make it to the pros. We're going to use a chart to illustrate this. In order to produce the chart, first we need to extract out the month information from the birthday. And first, choose the columns C and D, and right-click and insert. Now you're going to have two blank columns, and in these two columns we're going to type down two new variables. One is the month, which is the month we're going to extract from the birthday, and the second is the day we can extract from the birthday. And in month equals, the formula is simply month, parenthesis. And this formula will extract the month from a date. So if we choose the date of the player in cell B2 and close the parenthesis, enter. So once you do that, you're going to see that this gives you not a month, but another date. This is because the format of this cell is currently in a date format. We just need to make a change. Go to Home, and instead of using date on the format, we change the format to General. Click General. And now you see that the extracted number is 8, which is the birth month of the first player in the data table. And we can double click on the lower right corner to copy this month to all the players. And you can check another number. For example, here, this player was born in April and this number is 4. So with this, we have extracted the month of the birthday for the player. And similarly, we can do the date of the birthday of the player equals day, parenthesis, and then choose the birthday. So this is going to extract the day of the month from that birthday. And enter. And similarly, because this is a date format, it's kind of messed up when it displays. So you should change this to general. Now we can see that it extracts August and the 27th of August for this player's birthday. And then lower right corner, double click, that copies the day to all the players in this data sheet. Next, we want to summarize the number of players whose birthdays are in each one of the months. And to do this summary, we're going to use an Excel function called a pivot table. So here's how you create a pivot table. Go to Insert and choose the option that says Pivot Table. Click on Pivot Table. Then you're going to get a pop-up menu, and this asks you to select the table and the range. Usually Excel will be able to select this automatically for you throughout the whole data range that you have numbers. And the next, you choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. In most cases, we want the pivot table to be in a new worksheet. So by default is in a new worksheet. Of course, you can choose it in this existing sheet starting in a specific location. But in this case, we're going to leave this as is and choose a new sheet. And then click OK. So in pivot table, once you click OK, actually you see here, Excel is going to create a new pivot table for you on a new sheet. And let's name this so that we know what this sheet is without having to navigate here. Double click on the sheet name. And let's call this pivot. Type in pivot and press enter. So now we have a new sheet name. So this region, as I pointed here, this is where you put your pivot table. And on the right side, this is how you construct a pivot table. There are a few elements. There's a filter, there's columns, there are rows, and there are values. The most commonly used elements in a pivot table are the rows and the values. So we know that we want to figure out the number of players whose birthdays fall into each month. So on the top of it, we see all the fields. Now we're going to left click on month and drag it. Hold the left button of your mouse and drag it to rows, and then release the left mouse button. So now the month is going to be used to represent the rows. As you see, it has already listed all the months that we have just extracted from the birthday. And the values we want is the number of players who are born each month. And for this, we're going to drag the name of the player into values and then release. And in this case, Excel automatically has created the count of names. So it counts the number of names that were born in each month, January, February, etc. So now with this table, it has included all the Major League Baseball players from 1900 until 2022. It's more than 100 years of time span. To see this more clearly, we're going to choose these two columns. Then we're going to create a chart. So insert. Once you are on these chart choices, Excel is going to show you a bunch of preset charts. If the chart you want is right here, one of them, you can choose one of these charts, or you can choose recommended charts. If you want to see a full list of available charts in Excel, you click the lower right corner in this region, and this will give you all the charts that are available from Excel. And in this case, we actually want to create a column chart. So this is a column chart, and then we're going to use the first one and click OK. Excel has created the chart using the pivot table, and the chart you created from pivot table usually already has some elements in it. For example, the vertical axis is already marked as the kind of the name column. This is basically number of players, and the chart on the horizontal axis is the month that players are played. You can actually click on these elements to see what they have included. Let's change the chart name so that we know what this is. Number of MLB players born in each month. Enter this. We can also further improve the readability of this chart by go to Design and select a different quick layout so that we actually can see the charts better. We want the horizontal and the vertical axis both to have labels, so we choose this option. Click on it, and now we change the horizontal axis to month and the vertical axis to number of players. And the legend in this case is not very useful. It just takes more space. We can delete it. So you choose that and press the delete button. So that's gone. So now looking at this chart, what is your observation? So I'm sure all of you can see this. Interestingly, there seems to be a lot more players who are born in August. Select this bar and double click on it. Will give you the Format Data Points menu. This actually would allow you to change the color of this bar. So let's just highlight this bar by changing the color here. So the question is, why are there quite a bit more players born in August? If you pay attention to more details, actually not just August. September, October seems to be relatively high towards the months after August. And then during the first half of the year, it kind of goes a little bit down as well. But overall, what we see here is August has quite a lot more Major League Baseball players. This is the famous birth month anomaly of Major League Baseball players. I can give you a few seconds to think about the reason. Now we'll come back. So this birth month effect of August was caused by the cutoff month of Little League players. So usually August is the cutoff month for age. Let's say we are playing in the age group of kids who are 10, and the cutoff month is August, which means if we are playing in July, the kids who were born in August would have been almost a year older than the kids who were born in June or July. So for younger players, 1 year of age difference would make a huge difference in strength, agility, everything related to physiques. So those kids who were born in August have been playing with the kids that are much smaller than them throughout the years. So year after year, they've been the biggest kids, and they tend to be the best players as well. And at the fundamental level, that's the reason why they tend to eventually make it to the big leagues. Quite interesting, huh? So another question is, is there a birth date effect? Does the date of the month actually have an influence on how many players would make it to the big leagues? I'll leave that question to you, as we have already created the day of the players' birthdays. I'm sure you can use a pivot table and a column chart to reach your own conclusion after the class. Now back to the pivot table that we have created. Close the interface for changing the column color. Now we are back to the pivot table fields. And we want to take a look at this. Well, we have looked at more than 100 years of professional baseball data. How about more recently, let's say from the year 2000 and onwards? So pivot table provides us more flexibility to filter the data using additional variables. So in this case, the from column actually represents the players who were playing from which year. So let's drag the from column into this area called filters and drop it there. So as you see here, once you drop it there, then you're going to see filters, and it will appear at the top left of this pivot table area. And here we can click on this, and by default it will select all the years, and what we want to change is we're going to check select multiple items, and now uncheck all. So now once you uncheck it, currently you're selecting no year, so there's no data. And as I said, we want to take a look at 2000 and onwards. So let's select the years of 2000 up until 2022. And then click OK. So as you see here, based on what we have just looked at, the distribution of the number of players born each month has shifted somewhat, but again, this birth month effect for August still persists. So it's not just a historical phenomena, it is still there as of today in the Major League Baseball. So next I want to show you a different types of chart. Let's go back to MLB sheet. Let's take a look at some of these statistics. So as you can see, the column names is pasted with baseball jargons. So I want to bring your attention to these two columns. We're going to take a look at BA. This stands for batting average, and OBP. That stands for on-base percentage. So we're going to look at these two columns. And you also see that in this table, there are a lot of missing data. So these empty cells are missing data. It's either because this player does not have this stat at all, or because potentially in early years, some of the stats may not have been available. So let's just focus on relatively recent years so that we don't have to deal with missing values. Go to this table, click on this little triangle here, and we are going to use number filter on the from years. So there are many choices. You can choose equal to, not equal to, greater than, etc., etc. So in this case, we're going to choose between. We're going to look at the playing years between 2000, so greater than or equal to 2000, and less than or equal to, let's say, 2010. Click OK. So now we have all the players who are playing during this time span between 2000 and 2010. In addition, there are a lot of players who didn't play a lot of games, like this guy, AJ Murray. And we don't want to take a look at these data. So we're going to use a second filter by clicking here. And then we're going to use another number filter to be greater than or equal to. So this AB stands to at bat, whether they are put on the field at all. So we choose greater than or equal to, let's do 100. So they need to be at bat at least 100 times over this time span. Click OK. Now you see by applying these two filters, we no longer observe a absurd number of zeros or missing values on these two columns. Now let's select these two columns and insert. So in this case, we want to take a look at the relationship between batting average and on-base percentage. So if you know baseball, these two gotta be quite related. If you are a player with a high batting average, you're a really good batter, and then you are supposed to be on base more often. So these two are surely correlated. So to find the relationship between two variables, we're going to select this chart. This is a scatter chart, and we're going to choose the dots, and I'm going to click on this. So let's move the chart a little bit and then enlarge it. So now you can see that this is the chart. Let me rename this on base. Let's use the full name. Versus batting average. And again, we want a quick layout that let us know what these charts are. So click on this. Delete this. Label the horizontal axis as batting average, and the vertical axis is on base percentage. Let's delete this, just unnecessary labels. Here you can see that these two are closely associated. Excel also offers a function for you to see if you draw a line through these dots. It's called a trend line. So hover your mouse above these dots and right click, and then the choice is in this menu, add trend line. Click on this. So as you can see, Excel has added the line to it, and the line does not look so clearly. Let's change the line color so that it stands out better. Let's do red. So now you see the trend line in red. Go back to the line options. There are different types of lines that Excel can draw. For now, let's just focus on putting in a straight line here. It's called linear, so it will give you a straight line. And there are a few other options. We are not doing forecast, so don't worry about this. We're not going to set intercept, so we're not going to worry about this. So what we want is we want to display the equation on this chart and check that. So once you check this, let me move this out a little, go to home. I want this to be bigger and easier to see. So by default, Excel is going to give you a straight line where it shows the relationship between the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. So the vertical axis is going to be represented by Y, and the horizontal axis is going to be represented by X. So basically what this equation says is on base percentage is equal to 1.1579 times batting average and plus a small number. So since for now our main focus is on creating charts and various chart options, we're not going to go further into this trend line between batting average and on-base percentage. We are going to talk more about it later during the semester. So that concludes this video.